Our next speaker, Jenny Nagaoka, is the Deputy Director at the University of Chicago's Consortium on Chicago School Research, where she has conducted research for the past 15 years. Her research interests focus on policy and practice in urban education reform, particularly developing school environments and institutional practices that promote college readiness and success. This is the second time that Jenny has presented at our How Kids Learn conference, and welcome from the Chi, Dr. Jenny Nagaoka.
So I guess if you didn't guess, I'm from the Consortium on Chicago School Research. Although actually, we actually have recently changed our name. So we are now the Consortium on School Research. So as you might guess from our love of saying the word Chicago a lot, our work focuses on the Chicago public schools. We're a place-based research organization, and we see ourselves as thought partners who really work closely with the district to help them really understand the factors that go into student success and how they can be more effective in supporting their students. And so we have this interesting place in the city around thinking about education. So I did present here a couple of years ago, but I am a relative novice to the after-school world in a lot of different ways. You know, so the Wallace Foundation had a competitive grant a couple of years ago that we won. It's given us the opportunity to really think hard about what do we mean by student success. So we developed a framework to help define what student success is, what factors go into it, how can we be more effective in supporting students so they become successful in young adulthood, and how does this look over time? So I think you'll probably be hearing a lot about frameworks today. In some ways, I am presenting to you a framework. I think frameworks are tremendously helpful. They really help us communicate, help us share ideas, think about the connections among our work. In many ways, the framework I'm going to be talking to you about is less meant to be like, this is the magic framework. We're trying to be kind of like a framework of frameworks. So you can actually think about your work and what you're doing and how you can talk to that person down the street who's using a different framework and what the interconnections are. So hopefully this will be helpful for you in thinking about it in that way. So I'll be talking to you about this report that came out earlier this June. So for about a year and a half, my colleagues and I had this really kind of interesting journey where we were spending a lot of time delving into a wide range of literature. So it took me into places I have never been before, like neuroscience, even a bit more about like education philosophy, which I had thought about a long time ago, but we've been spending a lot of time thinking about Dewey, which is a place I haven't been more recently. And in many ways, I feel like Dewey is actually as relevant now as he was 100 years ago. And many of the things that we're actually seeing in neuroscience are telling us that this kind of instinct and understanding that Dewey had, and I think we've all had in our work with kids, it actually plays out a lot in what we see in the science behind what's actually going on inside of our brains. So in addition to delving into the literature, as researchers like me like to do, we also spend a lot of time talking to people because we do realize that researchers like to read and go into journals and books and thinking about things. But a lot of what we know about what goes into young adult success is actually inside of all of our brains and in the work that we do. And if we don't really tap into the practice wisdom that's out there, we really have an incomplete picture about what it is that young adult success means and how we can help our kids reach that sort of goal. So a big part of this project, where we started from, was actually trying to define this idea of what do we actually mean by young adult success? What is it that we all are trying to accomplish in the work that we're doing on a day-to-day basis? And so we spend a lot of time talking to people who are working with kids to understand what it is and how it is that they define success. And when I started this project, I have to be honest, I had a kind of a flip answer to what this meant. I said, because I do a lot of research on thinking about the transition from high school to college. And so, I said, oh yeah, I know the answer to that. That's easy. It's all about college and career success. And so what I found really interesting when I talked to practitioners about this question is that, yes, they always began from this idea that it's tremendously important for young people to go to college. We want to make sure that they're prepared for careers that they actually have a family-sustaining wage when they enter young adulthood, but where their passion really came in. And when they started really saying what it was that they were trying to do, came from this idea that success is much, much more. You know, success is not a fixed goal for all kids. Part of what we're trying to do when we work with kids is not to say, oh, you need a job and you need to go to college. It's also about helping them figure out who they are, what is their passion, what is it that they really want to be when they are adults, and helping them find the path to get there. And this is where the adults found their passion in this. And as we thought about this, we realized that this is probably also what motivates kids. You know, if we just tell kids it's important to go to college and it's important to have a job, I mean, they're not going to really disagree with this, but it's really that journey to figuring out who they are, what do they care about, what matters to them, who are they going to be when they become adults, that can really start to engage them in the learning and helping them really grow and develop into the kind of young adults that we'd like them to be and that they themselves would like to become. So one of the other things that we really thought about as we were thinking about success is that, you know, success is not just about what an individual has. So much about it is the context that we're within. And we sort of think, you know, I think a lot of times as we're working with kids, we say, you know, what success comes from are the talents that an individual has, the sorts of skills and knowledge. And it's not to say that those don't matter, but that's not it. I think more recently, we hear a lot more about the importance of hard work. I mean, that's always been with us, but we've kind of we've put names to it, so we talk a lot about grit and tenacity. And those things clearly matter. You know, success is partially what you bring with you, it's how hard you work, but we also know that it's not just about an individual. We don't become successful just by ourselves, but it's the larger context that we're within. It's about where we grow up and what is around us, and that we know that the starting point for kids varies greatly by where they happen to have been born. So helping kids become successful, helping them really understand their passions and figure out their dreams is going to vary by where they grow up. And we need to be thinking about how it is that they have figured out who they are in their community, who they are with their families and their schools, having all these pieces come together and really helping them get to that place of success where we want them to be. So we've also thought a lot about, okay, so we have this definition of success. What are the parts that go into it? We thought about this in kind of two different ways. One, in the outer ring that's in the figure here, is kind of the outward parts of what this looks like. We thought about three big concepts: agency, integrated identity, and competencies. So part of the idea, and I'll go into these more, is that agency is really understanding life as having choices, that it's not something that just happens to you. It's actually knowing who you are, so that's part of your identity, but also knowing where you want to go and seeing life's path as actually having choices, and it's something that you can actually shape. And then competencies matter a great deal because those are the ingredients that really help you enact your passions and your dreams. Within that, we have what we call our 4 foundational components, which are kind of the more concrete terms and the more discrete pieces of this outward-facing part of success. And I'll be going into those in just a minute. So we talk about 3 key factors. I said a little bit about agency, but I think this whole idea of seeing life as being something that you can shape, that your environment is not something that just happens to you, is really, really important. I was actually thinking about this a lot. I've been thinking about this for a while, but I think Darius sort of brought this to my mind much more pointedly this morning, with this idea that there's so much violence going on, and there's a lot of things that are happening in communities that are really, really problematic. And I think one of the exciting things that we're seeing going on today is that this is not something that is acceptable. Young people are starting to see that the police violence that's happening is not something that they should just accept and endure. It's actually something that they should be thinking about their world and their place in the world and how they can potentially change it. And that is part of agency, is seeing that the world is not just how it is, but there's actually ways that you can interact and change what is happening around you. And that's a big part of what I would like to think of as being success. Integrated identity is, I sort of see as the foundation of this idea of agency. And having a strong identity means you have the foundation to know who you are, where you come from, who you want to become, and what's going on around you, and seeing the interconnections of this. It's being able to navigate across different settings and having a sense of who you are in ways that you know that how you act and what you need to be doing when you're with your friends is maybe different than what you're being asked to do at school when you go to college or in the workplace, but you still have this common core sense of who you are and that this is you and that you can go through life and be acting differently and sort of having different sorts of pieces that you have to call upon, but it's all part of who you are and it comes together. The third piece of this are competencies. So just because you know who you are and you sort of see life as having choices, if you don't actually have the underlying competencies, you're not going to get there. You know, what competencies matter is going to vary by, you know, what the circumstance is, what the task's at hand, what the setting is, but there are all these things that you need to be thinking about in order to be getting toward the goal of being successful in life. Underneath these, we have what we call the four foundational components of mindsets, values, self-regulation, knowledge, and skills. And these are really big things. This is kind of where it comes into the idea that there are a lot of frameworks out there, a lot of really good frameworks out there. We didn't want to sort of say our framework is the magic framework that will rule them all and nobody else needs any other framework ever. You know, because I think there's a lot, and a lot of what frameworks are helping us think about a particular problem. And so we're trying to be really, really general here. And so we kind of came up with these four things as being the foundational components. We think mindsets matter a great deal. So the beliefs that young people have about themselves, about other people, and about the world shape a lot about how they interact with others and what they're actually able to do. So having a sense of self-efficacy, for example, will shape how kids act and whether they're able to be successful. If they actually believe that working hard will pay off, makes a difference. If they actually feel that the world is a place where they belong, will matter a lot in how they interact with the world. Self-regulation also matters a lot. I mean, this is kind of where some of the ideas behind tenacity and grit also come into play, right? So it's like, how well are young people and young adults able to manage their own emotions, their attention, their behaviors in ways that are really effective for the goals that they have. You know, these things matter. And so helping young people develop these pieces is part of what helps them become successful in the longer term. Knowledge and skills, I mean, those are really, really big categories. And so we put knowledge and skills here. We talk about different types of knowledge and skills because there are the social skills or soft skills that matter. There's a set of cultural knowledge that will matter depending on where you are. All of these things are part of knowledge and skills, and we sort of left these to be sort of as broader categories, but we know that these matter underneath success. Finally, our fourth component are values. So values are a really, really important part of identity. This is what helps young people know what matters to them, what do they consider important, what are they trying to accomplish. Without having a sense of values, these other things don't really have a direction to them. And part of developing an identity and having agency in the world is understanding yourself in this way, and that's part of the journey toward young adulthood. So I think the other big question that always comes up, so I've sort of described what the factors look like, what does young adult success look like, but I think the biggest question that we always have around this is how do we get there, right? What matters? And when we're talking about more abstract things like agency and identity, it's obviously something that we can't just learn from a book or in a traditional classroom setting. And this is kind of where Dewey really comes back and how we start to think about it. And the fact that we learn through experiences and we learn from reflecting on those experiences. And so we've described the way that you start to help young people on the path to success is by providing what we're calling developmental experiences. And we're seeing these as having two kind of big parts, and it's described in this figure as a variety of verbs. So one side is action, and one side is reflection. So one part is the doing. It's kind of going through these experiences, having a rich and varied set of experiences where you're encountering different types of things, having the opportunities to tinker with it, so you're actually playing around with what that experience is like, having the opportunities to choose what the nature of those experiences are, having a chance to practice. You're actually doing something over and over because we know that repetition is part of what helps us get better at things and learn from them. And it's also, especially as young people enter adolescence, is having a sense that they're actually contributing to it. There's actually meaning behind what they're doing. You know, and it's not enough just to be doing these things. It also matters that there's an opportunity for young people to reflect on this, to process it, to internalize what's going on. So they're not just doing it, but they're understanding what the meaning of it is and how they're thinking about this. This means describing what happened to them. So how did that experience go? Having the opportunity to evaluate it. So did I like that? How did that go? Was that something I would want to do again? Making connections. How is that experience that I just had similar to things I've had before, and how is it different? Envisioning. So if you were to do this again, what would you do differently? How might it go next time if you tried something else? And then finally, integrating it. And so we're actually sort of thinking about the experience, thinking about what it means, and how this is a part of who they are. And so we've thought about these as the larger whole of what it looks like for young people to become successful. And so in this report, you know, we've also talked a lot about not just the fact that you need experiences, but also the role of relationships. So relationships are the parts that make meaning. I think this was mentioned earlier that young people need opportunities. They need to be in a place where they feel safe and that they feel loved and that they have opportunities to learn. And so developmental relationships are sort of the conduit by which all these different types of developmental experiences can potentially have a lot more meaning. So you know, we've really tried to think about what this means and how is it that we can actually go from having these ideas about what factors matter, what sort of experiences are, and I think that the next place that we're trying to take this, because there's a lot of questions around this, is what does this actually look like in practice? What are the strategies that we can actually have so that we're able to provide these developmental experiences to young people? So thank you.